China has just dropped the loudest warning yet on Donald Trump's Hormuz move. China reacted publicly on Sunday through senior diplomatic channels, warning that a U.S. blockade of Hormuz runs against international interests and calling for restraint. Beijing said it was closely watching developments around Hormuz, stressing the waterway's importance to global energy flows. Reuters has reported that some Chinese vessels have passed through Hormuz during the crisis, but Beijing's public line has focused on restraint and opposition to the blockade. Chinese messaging around the blockade has warned against outside pressure and called for calm, though the specific line about not meddling in China's external relations is not independently confirmed by major wires. The framing matters as much as the words. China's public position is that the blockade threatens global interests, while earlier, Reuters reporting showed that some Chinese ships had managed to pass through Hormuz during the crisis. That is Beijing's answer to Trump's Truth Social post, announcing that the U.S. Navy would immediately begin blockading the Strait of Hormuz. Chinese traffic has been in the water, and any American attempt to interfere with that traffic would, in Beijing's telling, touch Chinese economic interests directly, not just Iranian ones. Beijing's second line drew a sharper perimeter. Chinese messaging has pushed back against Western pressure campaigns and sanctions regimes that complicate commerce with Tehran, and analysts read the response as Beijing treating its partnership with Iran as a sovereign choice rather than a bargaining chip in broader power rivalries. Strategists say the Chinese posture positions Beijing as both stakeholder and self-styled stabilizer, keen to avoid conflict, yet unwilling to concede ground on core economic interests. The signal to Washington is that the blockade cannot be designed to quietly pressure China. If it touches Chinese ships, it touches Chinese policy. Beijing's public line also carries a subtle alignment with Tehran's framing of the waterway, reinforcing China's expectation that the route remains open for Chinese transit. Observers note that this position aligns with China's wider strategy of safeguarding sea lanes from the South China Sea to the Persian Gulf, ensuring that energy flows remain insulated from political turbulence whenever possible. That is not a neutral stance, but it is more accurate to say Beijing is opposing the blockade and resisting pressure on Iran than to say it has openly endorsed Tehran's legal reading of Hormuz. The practical effect is that China has signaled resistance to Washington's pressure campaign and sympathy for a diplomatic outcome more favorable to Tehran. The warning arrived as a parallel story broke in Washington. According to a CNN report citing 3 people familiar with the intelligence assessments, Beijing is expected to deliver new air defense systems to Iran within the next few weeks. U.S. intelligence also underscores that Iran may be using the ceasefire as an opportunity to replenish key weapons systems with the help of foreign partners. 2 sources told CNN there are indications that Beijing is working to route the shipments through third countries to mask their true origin. Those are U.S. intelligence assessments, not confirmed shipments, and they have not been independently verified by international wires at the same level. Reuters, citing CNN's report on U.S. intelligence assessments, said the weapons in question were shoulder-fired MANPADS that U.S. officials believe Beijing may be preparing to send to Iran. MANPADS of that kind pose an asymmetric threat to low-flying U.S. military aircraft and have figured in the current war. Trump said the F-15 was brought down by a shoulder-fired missile, while Reuters separately reported Iran claiming it used a new air defense system, leaving the exact weapon type unresolved. It also remains unclear whether any system used in that incident was Chinese-made. Trump's own description of the shoot-down is worth hearing. He said the mission was flown in daylight over unbelievably hostile territory, that U.S. forces had taken out Iranian anti-aircraft and radar, but that what hit the aircraft was a shoulder-fired, handheld, heat-seeking missile. He said the Iranians got lucky with the shot, that the missile was sucked in right by the engine, and that the crew made it out. He called the operation a very dangerous mission, and said he had been told there would be sacrifices. If Chinese weapons transfers to Iran were ever confirmed, any U.S. move to stop them would raise the political stakes with Beijing. But China has publicly denied the allegation. Beijing rejected the CNN reporting in plain language. A spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in Washington said China has never provided weapons to any party to the conflict, that the information in question is untrue, and that as a responsible major country, China consistently fulfills its international obligations. The embassy urged the U.S. side to refrain from making baseless allegations, maliciously drawing connections, and engaging in sensationalism. It also said Beijing hopes the relevant parties will do more to help de-escalate tensions. That is the public Chinese line. U.S. intelligence is saying one thing. The Chinese embassy is saying the opposite. Both statements are now on the record. Behind the headlines sits a longer structural alignment. Iran has maintained established military and economic ties with both China and Russia for years. Tehran has aided Moscow extensively in the Ukraine war by supplying Shahed drones, while selling a significant portion of its sanctioned oil to China. That network is the backbone of Iran's ability to absorb Western pressure. The Hormuz blockade order, the CNN intelligence reporting, and Dong's warning all land inside that same network. Iran supplies drones eastward. China and Russia supply political cover, air defense, and oil revenue back. Washington is now aiming a blockade at one node of a structure that has many. This is where the week ends. Donald Trump ordered a U.S. Navy blockade of the Strait of Hormuz hours after the Islamabad talks collapsed. Iran's IRGC Navy warned of what it called a firm and forceful response to any further American warship transit. China's defense minister just said Chinese ships are already moving through Hormuz, that Beijing will honor its agreements with Iran, and that other nations should not meddle in China's external relations. A CNN report cited by Reuters says U.S. intelligence assessments indicate China may be preparing air defense shipments to Iran in the coming weeks. The Chinese embassy calls the claim untrue. The next move at Hormuz is no longer a decision for Washington and Tehran alone. Beijing has now placed its policy and its economic stake on the same piece of water, even if its exact operational red lines remain unstated in public. Subscribe to WLA for daily geopolitical analysis.
Was there a point that that you were thinking there's too much on the line, and somebody was saying maybe we abort this now and wait? I mean, given the resource, like the general said, it seemed like there was so much on the line here. You must have been thinking, well, this could have completely changed.
So the first one, which was in many ways as dangerous as the second, I guess it gets, because we're flying over daylight. You know, we're the best at the world at night. We have goggles that nobody. We have goggles. I've tried them. They're unbelievable. I see better with the goggles at night than I see without them during daylight. I mean, daylight today, we have a beautiful day. You see just as well with goggles. In many ways, it's enhanced. So we have the best in the world. So it's much safer for us to do it at night, whereas other people, no other country has that capability. They don't have that particular piece of equipment like we do. But when I was told flying and in daylight, I think we flew 7 hours over Iran, and that's a long time, over unbelievably hostile territory, where they have nothing but weapons. We took out their anti-aircraft, which is great. We took out their radar, which is great. We took out a lot, but they still have, you know, what hit this one was a handheld shoulder missile, heat-seeking missile. So it's not like, you know, they're totally whatever. And they have probably a little luck, because you got to get lucky. But they shot it, and it got sucked in right by the engine. But these guys were out of there. They were great. Their timing was great. But no, I was told that this is a very dangerous mission. I understand. They didn't say it's a foolish mission. They said, you know, we're going to be sacrificing hundreds of people do this. This is, I mean, you have tankers that are flying over this area so that because the flight was so long, they had to refuel. It's a very dangerous mission. I just felt it was worth it. If you would have told me that we would have been successful, gotten both, and nobody was even essentially injured, I would have said that would be impossible. Yeah.